Do I have to leave for the airport at 4:15 a.m. tomorrow to begin my journey to Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival? Yes. Have I even begun to start packing? No. So we're going to try to keep this quick. I will meet you on the other side. Welcome and thank you for joining me for this episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I am a knitter and a crocheter. I am also a cyclist with AID's Lifecycle, an annual 7-day, 545-mile bike journey from San Francisco to Los Angeles, raising money for the life-saving work of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. You can find me at Gary Knits, Gary Rides on Instagram, and also at GaryKnitsAndRides on Ravelry. As part of my fundraising for AIDS Lifecycle, I have started a series of Knitalongs and Crochetalongs that I call the End AIDS Knitalongs and Crochetalongs, and I am also running an occasional fiber auction. There's one going on right now over at Stash for Good on Instagram. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But thank you for joining me, taking some time out of your day to see what I'm working on, see about some ways that we can combine our love of crafting and doing some good in our community. It has been a very fun and enjoyable past 2 weeks. I've done a lot of bike riding training for the AIDS Lifecycle, which kicks off exactly 1 month from today. So a month from today, I'm filming this on the 3rd on Wednesday. I will be on my way to San Francisco for orientation, and then we will ride out on the following morning. So I am taking this week off of training because I had a business trip, and then I am headed, as I mentioned, to Maryland Sheep and Wool, which I'll also talk about here in just a second. So it's been nice to take a little bit of break from very long weeks of riding. I'm at 200 miles a week. I'll probably do one slightly longer week before the event, and then that'll be kind of the peak of my training. So it's nice to take a little break for a week. But as I said, it's been a pretty packed couple of weeks, a lot of fun. I went last weekend or 2 weekends ago, to the LA Yarn Crawl. When I say I went to the LA Yarn Crawl, I only made it to my local yarn store, which is the Knitting Tree LA. LA Yarn Crawl always coincides with peak training days for AIDS Lifecycle, and so I never get to do the full trip to all the different stores around the area. It would probably take me a couple of days anyway, since LA is so spread out. But I was able to get to Knitting Tree and hang out with Caitlin from Porter Wool Co., which was amazing, as well as Olive Fiber Arts. She was back in town, so that was fun to see her. And then I met a new dyer who I'm going to show you some of her stuff in just a little bit, and that's Katie from Fiction Fibers. So that was a lot of fun. I was also able to attend the Los Angeles LGBT Center's annual gala, which they hadn't done since the pandemic, so it was the first time they've done this live and in person. Since then, they were honoring a couple of different people and had lots of entertainment. It was a very glam sort of event. There were lots of drag performers from RuPaul's Drag Race in attendance. So it was just a really fun event to see folks get all dressed up and out and about. And they raised a little over $1 million for the center, which is fantastic. One of the things that sort of came out of my conversations with folks from the center, as well as some folks who were there from San Francisco AIDS Foundation, is just how difficult this fundraising environment is. I know that the number of cyclists doing AIDS Lifecycle is down pretty dramatically from last year, and as a result, fundraising is coming in a little bit, well, no more than a little bit, but behind where they were last year. Some of that's probably to be expected. Last year was the first year post-pandemic that we were able to do the full ride all together in person, and so I think there was a lot of pent-up energy from folks who had missed 2 years their chance to do it to 2 years. So we had a lot of people jump back in and do it. And this year, I think some of that's pulled back. But I think that it's also just a difficult environment with everything that's going on in the economy to raise the dollars that they've raised in the past year or so. So I truly appreciate all of those who have donated to my AIDS Lifecycle fundraising, whether that's a direct donation or through participation in my Knitalongs and Crochetalongs or the D-Stash for Good auction. Every little bit helps, and I am truly appreciative of everyone who has chipped in to support me so far this year. We've got one more month. I'm not giving up yet. I'm going to continue to push until to the very end. So I'm going to pop a little QR code in here, and that will take you, if you're watching this on your television, you can just scan it, and that will take you to my fundraising page for AIDS Lifecycle. I should also mention that everything that I mention here today will be in the show notes, and I will pop another QR code up here, which will take you directly to the show notes if you're not watching this on your computer, where you can click down below on YouTube. So everything I mentioned, patterns and yarn and all that stuff will be mentioned in the show notes, as well as links to all the information about the Knitalongs and Crochetalongs. The other thing, since I've been doing a lot of training this past few weeks, that means a lot of long bike rides. And as I've mentioned before, one of the things that I like to do while I'm on a 4 or 5 hour bike ride, since I do it on the river trails and I'm not in traffic, is to listen to audiobooks. And so I finished 2 more books over the past couple of weeks. Highly recommend both of them. One is called Leave the World Behind, and I don't have the author's name. But it is a story about a family who's rented a house for a vacation, and then in the middle of the night, an elderly couple appears on the doorstep claiming that the house is theirs, and that something terrible has happened, and they need to come and stay with them. And sort of it's very unclear what is kind of real and what is not, and what is going on that sort of caused them the distress. So it's kind of a little bit of a mystery, but it's more just sort of a little not post-apocalyptic, but just sort of one of these things where something is going on and no one's quite sure what it is. Kind of reminded me a little bit, kind of just in that setup of the Delicate Balance by Edward Albee, the play. So the second one, which was recommended by my sister-in-law that I just finished yesterday, actually on the plane ride back from my business trip, is called The Lincoln Highway, and it is Tolles, is the last Amor Tolles. Oh gosh, I should remember to jot these down. The Lincoln Highway. It's a long book, but it is such a great story, and I just could not stop listening to it. It's set in the 50s in the U.S. A young kid has gotten out of a juvenile detention center because his father has passed away and he has to take care of his brother, and they have plans to do a cross-country trip that gets derailed by a couple of the other boys from the detention center who have escaped and then shown up at their doorstep. So it's just a really fun tale with a lot of great characters. I could not recommend it enough. If you like listening to audiobooks, both of them are good, but the Lincoln Highway is particularly good. They have three narrators kind of playing different characters. So highly recommend both of those. As I mentioned, one of the other things that's going on right now is that we have kicked off the final D-Stash for Good auction for this fundraising season. So the fundraising for AIDS Lifecycle will end basically on June 1st when we all head up to San Francisco. They kind of cut it off, and then they'll reopen it for next year's ride in August. So I'm doing one more D-Stash. It's running right now. It's going to run through the 13th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. It is a great assortment of yarn and other things. There are about 223 items up there. We have every weight of yarn accounted for, and a lot of different price points in terms of some high-end luxury yarn all the way down to kind of big box commercial yarn. So there's lots to look through over there. It is organized by yarn weight and then alphabetically within that by dyer or manufacturer. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to browse through there. So there's been a pretty active bidding. One of the things I'm hoping to do on my flight out to Maryland tomorrow is to sit down and go through my spreadsheet and start updating things just to see. I haven't calculated what the total value of the yarn that is up for auction and kind of where we are versus that right now. But it's a big group, lots of multiple skein lots. So I don't know quite sweater quantities, but definitely, where you have 3, 4 or more skeins of yarn. So it should be a pretty good auction in terms of my final big fundraising event for this year's AIDS Lifecycle. We also did the announcement for the upcoming Pride Knitalong this last week. So I announced the Pride Crochetalong a couple of weeks ago. I'll talk about that in a second. But I announced and sat down with a brief thing with the dyer and designer for this year's Pride Knitalong. So we are going to be working on the Pin-Up Rainbows Shawl by a Whimsical Wood Yarn Co. So that's Samantha at a Whimsical Wood Yarn Co. Here's a picture of the design. As you can see, it is an assigned pooling design, which I'm very excited about because I've never done that method of or style of knitting before. So I'm very excited to try that. It is shown here in a gray with the little rainbows, which is where the color change happens and you do a special stitch. But we had put together 2 yarn kits, one which was a navy, which was called Grab Your Asses and Let's End AIDS, and then there was an off-white speckle with the burst of rainbow, which was called Proud of Our Asses, End AIDS Knitalong Edition. We had a very limited number of those yarn kits, and I'm happy/sad to say that they are all sold out. If you go down below to some of my other videos, I just this past week put up a short 20-minute or so video where I walked through some alternatives for assigned pooling yarn that I was able to find that are available now from sellers or available through from a dyed to order basis. So those are some options for you to, if you did not grab one of the yarn kits. Thank you so much for everyone who did buy that. It was the first time we were trying a model where I basically bought a wholesale order of yarn and then sold that as yarn kits to sort of take it out of the dyer's hand. It seemed to work fairly well. I mean, it's a little more complicated and there's double shipping and all that stuff, but I think it worked out pretty well. And obviously, people were in love with this yarn, which is absolutely fantastic. So if you did not get one of those yarn kits, go watch that video and you can see some other options for assigned pooling yarns. Again, I said in that video, I will say it again here. If you have another resource for assigned pooling yarn, please drop it down in the comments below, because I'd like to go check it out and then highlight it on Instagram for folks who are still looking for yarn. You've got plenty of time because the Knitalong does not start until June 1st and it will run through the 31st of July. So still plenty of time to get your yarn. We just had to kind of work on a longer runway because the yarn had to come from Samantha to me, and then when I get back from Maryland, it should be here, and I will ship that out to everyone to make sure they have it in time for cast on. But let me know if you have another resource for assigned pooling yarn. I would love to see it. So that is the Knitalong. I understand that assigned pooling yarn is not accessible to everyone. I try to always say for the Knitalongs and the Crochetalongs, you do not need to buy the yarn kits that we've put together. It helps on my fundraising, obviously, but I always want to make these things accessible to everyone. So stash diving is always encouraged. With assigned pooling yarn, you may not have any in your stash, so that may make it difficult. So I also wanted to offer up an option for folks who want to do stash diving, don't want to have to buy special yarn for a project, but still want to participate in the Knitalong, is Samantha's hat pattern called Scribbles. I'll put a picture of it up here. It kind of has that same feel of assigned pooling because you have that sort of, in this case, gray solid background and then these little bursts of color. But with the Scribbles pattern, instead of using a special yarn, you're just using 2 yarns. And in the pattern, she explains how to carry the floats and everything where you place those little blobs of color. So you could find any super colorful yarn in your stash to do that. So for both the Pinup Rainbows shawl and the Scribbles hat, if you want to participate in the Knitalong, this time you will need to buy an entry ticket. That's on my Ko-fi page, again linked down below. Because the patterns are existing patterns, it just is easier for everyone if we do it as an entry ticket model. So you buy the entry ticket, it's $3. You buy one of the patterns, they are both $6 on Ravelry, links are down below, and then either find some assigned pooling yarn if you didn't get one of the kits and you're making the shawl, or go stash diving for some yarn to make the Scribbles hat, which is written for both DK and fingering. I should mention that the shawl is written for 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn, but is very customizable. If you happen to have assigned pooling yarn that's worsted weight and you have enough of it, you could definitely make it in worsted weight. And it's one of those patterns that you can kind of stop at any point or continue if you want to make a giant shawl and you have three skeins, or you want to stop and make a more of like a shawlette. You can definitely do that. So that is the Knitalong. I'll just go ahead and mention on the Crochetalong, in case you haven't seen one of my earlier episodes, we are going to be making the In the Forest of the Night cardigan, our first crocheted garment ever in one of my Crochetalongs. Here's a picture of it. It is by Elizabeth Desamore of Desamore Designs. The pattern is available on Ravelry and her website for $14. Again, you will also need an entry ticket for this one since it's an existing pattern. Just go to the website and my Ko-fi page, and you'll see the Pride entry ticket. That's your entry ticket for all the Crochetalong and the Knitalong. And then, unfortunately, we have some yarn kits from Brooke at Fully Spun, but the window for the pre-order has ended on that. So it's a DK weight cardigan. It comes with 3 different sleeve options and sizing from small to 2X, I think, currently in the pattern. So check out the pattern, and you can see before you buy it how much of the DK weight yarn you would need to use. The one that Brooke had dyed up for us is a 50-50 merino cotton, but the pattern, when it was originally released, was done in Knitpicks Cotton, which I think would also make a really lovely. That's one of my favorite cotton blend yarns. I think it would make a great one of these cardigans. So I am taking my sample, which I've shown before, up to out to Baltimore this week for Maryland Sheep and Wool. We're going to try it on my sister, who I'm making it for, and see how much longer we need to make it, and then I'll finish that up when I get back from the bike ride from San Francisco. So that's kind of what's been going on. I should mention, in terms of make-alongs, that my friend Valerie, who runs our weekly Zoom call, which happens every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. Valerie, over on her YouTube channel, which is A Visit from Nana and Papa, I'll link to that down below. She is running her own make-along, and it is for anyone making any sort of top. So she's an expert sweater knitter and sweater modifier, and she's going to sort of stand ready, I think, to help folks out who may be trying to knit their first sweater or crochet their first sweater. So any top that you are working on, it can be a work in progress. You just have to post a picture using her hashtag, which I'll link down below, showing kind of where you are, and then show some progress on it, and you'll be entered into that make-along. And kind of in celebration of Valerie starting her own make-along, she wants to give away one of the patterns for the In the Forest of the Night cardigan. So if you are interested, she's particularly interested in giving one away to someone who may not have the means right now to buy the pattern, but still wants to participate in the Crochetalong. So if that fits the bill, just leave a comment down below, and right before my next episode, so that'll be in 2 weeks' time, let's say in the comments just say cardigan, something in your comments say cardigan, and I will pick randomly from the folks who put that in their comments, and then we will give away one of the In the Forest of the Night cardigan patterns. So thank you, Valerie, for doing that. And if you haven't joined one of our Zoom calls yet, please feel free to join us. It's pinned to the top of my Instagram feed. I'll also post a link down below. But it's a really fun and funny group of people. And we just sit around and sort of laugh and show off what we're working on and talk about all things sort of knitting and crocheting related. So it's a good time. With that, I think I'll move on to some actual crafting. I'm not going to show any progress on my Windy Day blanket. I have made some progress. I'm still in square number 7. I'm going to take it with me to Maryland, even though it's a little cumbersome, just because I'm going to, in the evenings, have a fair amount of alone time, and I'm looking forward to just kind of maybe Netflix and knit on that blanket, and hopefully get through another square and then be kind of more caught up. It's going to be a push to get that done by the graduation date that it is celebrating, but I'm going to give it the old college try. The other thing I have done some progress. I got to knit a lot of this on the plane yesterday. Is my Not Too Tart hat by Fatima Hines, aka Disturbing the Fleece, and I am knitting this, as I mentioned I was going to, in Ken Yarn's Love Bubble colorway, which is the colorway that was his Pride fundraiser this year in support of AIDS Lifecycle. And the Love Bubble is named for what we all on the ride call the community that gets built over the 7 days that we're on the road. But I'm loving how this is knitting up. I did not do a gauge swatch, and I feel like I probably could have gone down a needle size, but I tried to try it on. It's a little loose, but I think it'll be fine. It'll be a very nice, lightweight hat for me to wear in camp every night. But I really love how it's working up. And this pattern is such a great, easy, breezy travel kind of pattern. Once you get past the ribbing and you do the setup row, you are on autopilot until you get into the decreases, because the pattern is just really easy to memorize. It looks great in a solid. I think it looks great in this variegated. Just the little bits of ribbing in between these big stockinette panels. I think it's going to be fantastic. So I'm very happy about that. These are my Inclusive Pride needle stoppers from Ginger Snap That, I believe is where they came from. And then I have a Ken Yarn Mean Pearls stitch marker on there. But I'm really loving how it's turning out. I can't wait to get the rest of my Love Bubble yarn. It is going to be featured in the prize packages for the Pride Knitalong and Crochetalong. So I bought a few extra skeins to throw in there, so other people are going to get to enjoy that yarn as well. And hopefully a lot of you got a chance to purchase some of that during the pre-order. I'm really appreciative to Jake at Ken Yarn for thinking of me and thinking of AIDS Lifecycle when he set out to do his sort of final big Pride fundraiser, at least from the yarn dyeing side, since he's decided to move out of that part of his business. The other thing that I have worked on, and I guess it counts as an FO, even though it's a tiny one, is I did my second Daisy and the Bluebird square, and this is for Kristen at We Share Needles podcast. She may have already had the baby. I haven't seen if they've updated anything, but they were collecting squares of these, and Maddie was going to piece them all together and make a blanket for the baby. So I have done 2. This is the other one I showed last time, and this is all being done in seismic yarn leftovers from my sweet shadow wrap that I made earlier this winter. I think I'm going to do one more. I think I'm going to do it in these 3 colors. So purple is Dracula's Cape. Oh my gosh. Citrine is the yellow, and I always forget. It's Daydream or Daybreak. I think it's Daydream is the pink and yellow, which I think looks like pink lemonade. So I think I'm going to do those 3 and then get those off off to Arkansas for Maddie to piece them together. So that's all the progress I have on any projects. It is going to be a push again to get this blanket done. And the only other thing I am going to be working on, I think, is this hat, to try to get that done before I head up to San Francisco, so I have that to wear in camp every night. And I'm looking forward to, well, for many reasons, I guess, I'm looking forward to getting done with the ride so I can get back to a little more active knitting schedule, because I have a ton of things that I would like to be working on. And obviously for June and July, I'll finish up my In the Force of the Night cardigan and then start working on my Pin Up Rainbows shawl, although I don't know what yarn I'm going to use. When we were on the live with Samantha, she said she had a few skeins of the white kit that didn't come out exactly right, and she was going to throw them in the box for me, but not to sell because they weren't up to her standards. So I may end up using that, since we sold out all of the kits. I wasn't going to keep one for myself when I had an opportunity to use it for fundraising. So we'll see. If not, who knows? Maybe at Maryland Sheep and Wool, I'll come across some amazing assigned pooling yarn that I can grab and use that for my show. I'm trying not to buy new yarn this year for any of the Knitalong and Crochetalong projects. I will buy the kits, obviously, and I'll use them for giveaways and things like that, because I want to support the dyers, but I'm trying to use my stash for my projects. So that's it on the actual crafting side of things. I did want to talk a little bit about Maryland Sheep and Wool. I'm so excited. I have to run right from here to start packing up, because, as I said, I have to head out to the airport at 4:15 a.m. Tomorrow morning to catch the flight. Of course, there's no direct flights that I can take, so I have to connect. But I'm looking forward to this weekend. It is going to be so much fun to see so many of the folks from our Zoom call, because a lot of them live in the area. So we're all going to get together, and I've never met, except for my sister, I've never met any of them in person. So that's going to be fantastic. And there's so many vendors, both at Yarn Centric. So on Friday, there's a sort of mini Fiber Fest. I think there's like 36 vendors in Frederick, Maryland, which is also where the Magpie Fiber flagship store is. And they're doing a whole Fiber Friends gathering. So they're going to have like Explorer Knits, I think, is going to be there. Bertie Parker's going to be there at the Magpie store, which to me would be a destination, a vacation destination in and of itself. So I'm super excited to go see the Magpie store. And then later that afternoon, we'll be over at a group of us are going to be going to Yarn Centric, where I know Fangirl Fibers is going to be there, Black Pearl Magic, Tenny Casey is going to be there. I think there's a ton of people that have bought things from before in the past that I'm excited to meet in person. And that doesn't even get me to the actual Maryland Sheep and Wool event, which I'm very excited to see Laverne at Busy Peach, who was such a great hostess for the Baton Rouge Fiber and Maker Festival that I was part of the virtual festival this past weekend, which was a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to meeting her in person. CC's Wool. I mean, there's a gazillion vendors at Maryland Sheep and Wool, so it's going to be a fun weekend. So if you see me, please come up and say hello. If you see me, you will be able to grab from me these that just came in the mail, little enamel pins with my logo. I'll also have some stickers if folks are interested in some stickers. So just say hi. I'd love to meet anyone who either follows me on Instagram or is a subscriber of the channel. It will be a fun weekend, and we'll probably be back at the fairgrounds, I guess, on Sunday. We'll see how it goes. The group that I'll be hanging out with, they all did it last year, and they went both days and said, that was good, that it was way less crowded and stuff on Sunday. So I assume we'll go back for Sunday, and then I've got a couple more days in the greater DC, Baltimore area, just catching up with some friends, which will be great because I haven't seen them in years. So it's going to be a fantastic weekend. So I'm really excited. You know, I have said that I'm trying to end the year with less yarn than I started the year, and I'm still on track to do that. This weekend is probably going to push me back in the other direction, but that's fine. I've got D-Stash kicking off fundraising for the 2024 ride coming in August, and I will go back to the stash and start to weed out some more stuff. So there is going to be yarn purchase. That's just going to happen. I have only 2 things that I'm specifically looking for. So the first one is, I have these 4 or 3, well, 3 colors, 4 skeins of yarn, one's a mohair to blend in. These 3 colors of Magpie Fibers Swanky DK, and there's the mohair that goes with the blue, which is called Magpie. And then the solid green is called Swamp Thing, and the variegated is one of the Magpie Fibers Fiber Society colorways, Fiber Society number 18, and this is all on their Swanky DK base. There is a shawl pattern by Zandy Peters. I'll pop it up here. It's called Eccentricity, and it's their stacked stitches method of knitting, and it looked like it would be a cool way to try that out. And then before I move on to their Fox Paws pattern, I took Zandy's class at Stitches West last year. That was sort of an intro into the stack stitches. But of course, I took the class and then brought my swatch home and have never pursued using it. So it would be good to have a little practice on that. But it requires 4 colors, so I need a 4th color. So I figured, since I'm going to Magpie, that seems like the most logical place to look. Any thoughts? I posted this on Instagram today and got a lot of people talking about some of the Magpie Beaver yarn. I think maybe the Caliente, I think it's called Caliente, which is sort of an orangey red, might be a nice pop in there. For some reason, when I first pulled these out to look at it, I thought sort of a hot pink, I don't know, just as a real pop of color. The other one that people had mentioned, I think, I'll put these down, which I think might work, is try to get something in this more chartreuse range. The pattern has a sort of lacy section which will be done in this variegated, and then all the stacked stitches would be done in the solids. And I guess I could always just grab whatever Stag Bunny or whatever their off-white is and do that. But I thought a little pop of color might be fun in there as well. So any thoughts? Drop them down below in the comments. The other thing, if you will recall, back in the fall, right after I started this podcast, I cast on and made it through part of one clue of Stephen West's Twists and Turns Mystery Knitalong. And these were the 3 colors that I had chosen. And I did not like how they look together. I did not like how they looked in that pattern, nor was I particularly enjoying knitting that pattern. So I ripped it out and decided to put these into a bag with a couple of other similar to this olivey gray color, similar to this off-white color. So, and then start to build a kit for Stephen West's Marled Magic yarn. It's in, I think, his book number 3, his Shawl book. But it takes he suggests getting 7 or 8 different colors to play with. So the ones that I have, I think I'm up to maybe 5 colors, are definitely in this range, so they're going to be more blendy. And so I'm going to be on the lookout for another color, and then I'll just play around with tones within the color family. So, but I can't quite think what other color would look good with this pairing. these are all very sort of muddy. I mean, well, obviously the off-white is not, but the red and this olivey green thing are sort of muddy because of the way the tonality is in these yarns. And so I don't know. I'm stumped on this one, short of just blending more of the same kind of colors in there. What other color would look good in this mix? So again, I'm taking pictures of these with me, and maybe I will quiz different different dyers and see what they have to say. But if you have any thoughts, I would appreciate it. This, this is not going to get knit up this year or probably even next year. So I've got plenty of time, but I love making little kits and then putting them in a basket for somewhere down the road. So if you have any thoughts, let me know down below. But that's the other. Those are the only two things that I'm on the lookout for at Maryland Sheep and Wool. If you're going to be there, drop a comment below. Let me know. I will try to look out for you. This will probably post, Friday morning. So if you're headed to Frederick on Friday, keep an eye out for me. I'd love to say hello. If you're a vendor, shout yourself out so I can come by and say hi. Or if you are know someone who's vending, or there's certain things that you think I should definitely do, short of bringing boots and an umbrella, because everyone has said that, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear any thoughts. But I'm super excited about this weekend and getting to see so many yarny friends. So that is that on Maryland Sheep and Wool. In terms of acquisitions, I imagine next episode is going to be a pretty good one for acquisitions. But I do have something to show. As I mentioned, I went to the LA yarn crawl at Knitting Tree LA. I saw Caitlin from Porter Wool Co. And I can show them. Oh, no, I can't because they're not here. I grabbed a couple of her skeins of assigned pooling yarn and put those in the D stash, because I knew, or I was hoping, that we would sell out quickly on the Knitalong kits. And so I put those in the D stash in a little section of yarn that I thought would work for the assigned pooling Knitalong project. All of those yarns sold out instantaneously, almost in the D stash at the buy now price. So they're not longer available, but as I mentioned in my little short video, Caitlin is headed back into the studio at some point in the next couple weeks. And she said she was going to have some more of the assigned pooling yarn up on her website. So go check that out. But I did meet a new dyer to me who's actually local as well. And her company name is Fiction Fiber. There you go, Fiction. And she is working currently mainly in non-superwash. So both of these are non-superwash singles. And the gray is called Mysterious Headlight. So it's this dark tonal gray with these little bursts of highlighter yellow in it. And then this one is called Big Hunch, which is just the reverse. So you got little pops of the dark gray in there. She also has a really cute, if you go to Fiction Fiber on Instagram and follow, her name's Katie, follow her. She also has a really cute like beret pattern that uses two colors. It's like a colorwork beret. For some reason, maybe it's just the proliferation of these like Wes Anderson inspired kind of knitting videos, but to me it has a very sort of Wes Anderson vibe to it, very Nancy Drew as well. But anyway, this is the yarn that I picked up from her, and my thought was to incorporate these in the same shawl, where one section was the yellow with the gray pops and the other section was the gray with the yellow pops. And the pattern that I think I've settled on is called passeggiata, which is not only one of my favorite words in Italian, but it's one of my favorite musical theater songs from Light in the Piazza. But it's by, the designer is Woolenberry. So I'll post a picture of it here, but you can see it's sort of like, kind of like that transition. So it starts in one color and then you start mixing in the other, alternating rows, and then it completely transitions to the other color. And I thought that would just look great with the little pops, kind of adding some interest into each of the what would be a solid color section. So that's Fiction Fiber. Go check her out, and especially if you're into non-superwash wool, because that's what she's primarily working in right now. In terms of Craftivism this episode, just two little things to highlight. One is Knit the Rainbow, who I talk about all the time, and you will hear a lot more about coming up from me in the fall, where I'm going to do an accessory drive for them as part of the fall Knitalong Crochetalong project. Stay tuned, more on that. But Knit the Rainbow, as you probably know if you've heard me talk about them, are expanding their operations into Chicago. So they provide cold weather accessories, hats, gloves, scarves, mitts, etc. to LGBTQ plus youth who are homeless or experiencing housing scarcity. They collect those through local yarn stores and directly, and then distribute those out to agencies serving that population. They've been doing it in New York City for several years now, and they are branching out into Chicago this year. In order to spread the word and to find new volunteers, they are going to be attending Pride Fest in Chicago, as well as H&H Americas, which is a big knitting or fiber show in Chicago every year, to try to spread the word about what they're doing, find more partners in terms of local yarn stores, find more knitters and crocheters who will be willing to knit up items for them, and to make sure that they're able to attend those two events, as well as the Pride Fest in New York City, and have a booth there. They're trying to raise $5,000 this spring. So they're running a fundraiser called Spring into Pride. I will link to them down below. So if you have a few dollars to spare to help get Knit the Rainbow able to spread their word in a new market for them, that would be fantastic. And the other one that I just wanted to mention, it popped up on, I don't even know why, it popped up on my Instagram feed, and I thought it was a cute and fun idea. It's mainly for folks who are in the UK, because it's a UK maker selling through his Etsy shop. It is Alex. He is on Instagram as red_panda_crochets. Again, I'll link this down below. But he has knit or crocheted little keychains that he's selling on his Etsy shop, and 50% of the sales of those will be going to help a charity there in the UK that provides education and resources around endometriosis. And so it's the little yellow ribbon, which is the endometriosis symbol, kind of like the red ribbon is for HIV/AIDS, and he has crocheted up these keychains and is selling those on his Etsy shop. So I will link to down there below. I thought it was just a great little fundraiser for a disease that is probably under recognized and under sort of addressed, and so I thought that was a good way to raise awareness and to raise some money for it as well. So those are the two things I have beyond the D-Stash for Good auction, beyond the Knitalong and Crochetalong that are coming up. I appreciate you taking some time. I was relatively short this week because I've got to get packing and get ready for Maryland Sheep and Wool, but I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it with me. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel. It helps me to continue to grow this community, and like this episode. Also leave a comment. I love to hear from everyone and get to know you a little bit better as much as we can in virtual space. But thanks so much for joining me. I'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Bye.